ask, as I'm listening to you both, I just wonder how we can define success as an artist. I mean, does it have to be financial success, or is it notoriety and legacy and fame? Because there's always this uncomfortable sort of coexistence between the purity of the process, but then the reality of having to survive and hopefully thrive from enough of an income.
I think it's important to make money on your work, any work that you do, and including art. And we have to get comfortable with paying artists and being paid and talk about it, because it's your work at the end of the day, and it's not just your work. It's sort of, you put your soul into it. So I think as pure as it has to be paid for. And this is something also that I'm studying and trying to round in my dissertation for St. Martin's, is how to make that cultural enterprise work and be sustainable, financially sustainable.
Yeah,
Kate,
no, I totally agree with you, Anya. And I think there are so many aspects of our lives as lives as artists where we're not being paid. So if you imagine, a gallery rings you up and says, we'd like to have a meeting with you to discuss this project. Now, if you were a lawyer, you'd go, great, no problem. That's £200 an hour for a meeting with me. If you were, and then they say, fantastic, we want to put on an exhibition. They'd go, great, and here's a £5,000 fee because that's going to take you 2 months to make that work. That doesn't happen. So often we're producing content for galleries, institutions, full of people on salaries, and we're producing their content for free with the hope that maybe we'll sell something. So that's the financial model, right? And so, whether it's being asked to do talks, being asked to, contribute,
curate,
all these sorts of, there's no payment structure. And what's really interesting in the UK is that even publicly funded organisations and institutions, there's no requirement or there's no proviso attached to that funding that artists will be paid.
I mean, what you're both describing sounds like an inherently exploitative industry.
Yes, and of course, the only people, well, not the only, but largely the people who that system enables is people who are independently wealthy, particularly in Britain, where the class system is so excruciating in any case. You end up with institutions being full of artists who can afford to be artists.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when we think about culture as being representative of society, who is it representing? And that's why it's so important that artists like Anya are, sort of push ahead and push through this, because actually, a country like Britain is made up of, incredibly diverse voices with incredibly different experiences. And if we're setting up the system so that only inherently wealthy people can participate in it, then that perspective is very, very limited.
I mean, what you're both talking about is very much putting the artist at the center of the art. And in a way, Backstage, the film, was like that. It was very much about Anya, her process. I wonder, though, I was reading one of your papers, Kate, and you talked about a blind competition where the judges of the art knew nothing about the artist, and that delivered parity in awarding sort of the winners, a gender parity consistently. I mean, is that the way forward? Maybe we shouldn't know about the artist. Maybe it should be just judging it on the work themselves. Anya, what do you think about that?
Oh, wow, I think it's a great idea for sure. Yeah, and I think we'll be surprised by how many female models, artists will be in the lead. because at the moment we don't see that, we don't have an opportunity to judge like that. I also think maybe there is a time for policy changing in some way, but we do have to address it. And I'm even thinking about some social pressure, how to be more inclusive for female artists in London, maybe introducing a week of exhibitions where galleries are pressured to exhibit female artists only. Things that they need to be shaken up. I think living